He is an exceptional lover. He's great in bed. I don't know how else to say it. He'd probably make a great archer. He has exceptional timing. I mean, you don't need me to read his hands to say that. He seems to have a simian line, and actually on both hands, which is extremely rare. Only about 1% of people have this, and that makes him jealous, the jealous and possessive type. He has a strained relationship with food. I also think he's going to retreat from the public eye at the age of around about 40. Anyway, I am Pisces Palmist. This is your Sunday case study, your weekly palmistry case study on celebrity. This week we are looking at Jeon Jungkook. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. I can't pronounce his name. His hand kind of presents actually, he's giving me some Michael Jackson vibes, and not in those awful ways that a lot of people associate Michael Jackson with, but in that he has a tremendous amount of energy, life force, a tremendous amount of expressive ability, and energy, just literal physical energy to give and to express. And it's almost like Terry Stokes would, he would say that this hand, you can see it more clearly on his left hand here, it's almost like when you look at it in comparison with the fingers, they seem out of place. The fingers almost seem a little too thin. They don't kind of sit right on the hand. And it's someone who is essentially driving through life with the gear stick on, no, with the handbrake on. And that's essentially what this person is giving off this impression that it's like a fizzy bottle that's been shaken up and the cap is still on tight, and he's exploding with what he has to give. And partly actually it's the simian line, this fusion of the head and heart line, which creates this. And this is not the most negative formations of this structure, of this Palmer marking to have, because it's not completely fused. The headline, you can see it kind of arcing away from the heart line here. So it's not as though his thoughts and feelings are completely fused as one. It's not as if everything he does with his entirety of his heart and soul, but there is an element of that. When he commits to something, he commits to it fully. And this creates that kind of possessiveness, jealous kind of nature, because he's literally all of his eggs are into one basket every time he makes a decision. He really has a way of keeping his hopes up, and so he stands to lose more when he doesn't succeed. And this really creates this kind of perpetual uh, self-beating up um, psychological pattern about him. This short Jupiter finger is only just short, but it is short. He beats himself up. He has actually quite a reduced idea of himself. And actually, I think he compensates for this with some sort of unusual relationship with food, a strange eating habit potentially. You can see the basal phalanx of Jupiter here. It's not overly wide, but I do think there are some worldly attachments here. Not an unhealthy preoccupation with sex, but I do think he enjoys sex, and I think he's very good at it as well. The Mercury finger here on the left hand is the only finger that is not overly knotty. And so it shows that he has a very instinctive, very intuitive way about not only the way in which he physically and otherwise expresses himself and his message, communicates his physical and verbal word, but in the way that he receives that physical expressive information as well. He is extremely intuitive when it comes to all manners of expression. And actually, this is a very internal thing. And this is what makes him such a remarkable artist. He is immensely passionate. And this is where this kind of simian line comes into it. It's confusing here because this is the left hand here and this is the right hand. Whereas this is his right hand in this image, of course. So it might confuse you. And the only reason why I've spun them around here is just actually to make it easier, but maybe I failed. It makes it easier for me anyway. Now the fingers here, overall, he's been brought up very well. There's a real healthy psychological framework here, and I think he has had good examples of relationships. He's been brought up with, parents that treated each other well. He's a little bit selfish. There is that. I have to say, there is a little bit selfish. And this is partly perhaps why he's so successful. He's committing to his own life and his own ambitions at this time. Also, partly having this simian line much more present in his right hand, which is a better place to have it because it means there's less of that possessive and jealous tendency. It's less internal. It's more about his work, his career. He is um, these thoughts and feelings are fused. When he makes a decision, it's out of his entirety of his feeling as well. He feels everything which he does. When he commits to something, he commits fully. He's laser focused, and he cannot stand to be disrupted or interrupted when he's in his flow. He has work to do, and he's extremely efficient when he's working as well. You notice how his Saturn fingernail here is it's quite short, as well as the Apollo fingernail. They're both quite short. Particularly Apollo fans out a little bit, not an unusual fingernail shape, but the shortness when compared with Jupiter is a little bit unusual, and it creates the fanned out shape is energy. Exploding. He has an Apollo is obviously a talents, creativity. It's all the feminine aspects and qualities and traits about a person, how much they can provide and give and influence and inspire and dazzle others with talents, creative abilities. And he does this in a way that is explosively active. He's constantly fluid in motion when he's creating, when he has something to give constantly. Now, Saturn here is a little bit more. It's not square, is it? But it's short enough to almost kind of provide something of a square. It's like a round square. That doesn't make sense. But he is much more structured in his work ethic, in his ideas about his planning, his his sense of duty and destiny. There's a sense of structure here, and this is partly why we see such a strong angle of time and proficiency on the thumb here. This is remarkable timing ability. I mean, exceptional timing ability. This is someone who is probably he could be a ninja if he wanted to be. This is someone who would make an exceptional archer. In fact, he would probably be good at any sports that require, um, those precise fundamental timing abilities. He has that, and obviously that's why he's in the music industry. Timing is key, but also he's probably an exceptional dancer, and this kind of structure and routine fits into this as well. His hand type is it's he's a fire hand, but with some watery elements, so there's a real duality. He's a really complex person. He's gonna struggle with his emotions and his thoughts and his feelings. He is incredibly creative, intelligent, sensitive, and emotional, but he's incredibly efficient with those emotions which are also fused with his thoughts. So when he makes a decision, it comes from a very creative place, and he's putting it into action very quickly. He's doing it in a very social way. He's doing it on stage. He's dazzling as he does it. There's a real because most water hands, a lot of very strong water hands anyway, influence and inspire behind the drawing board at home in isolation a lot of the time, not often. I mean, not always, but whereas the fire hand is very social, very outgoing, and is constantly moving in social circles and networking and showing their worth in front of others. They're salespeople. Everything they do in every way is social. So that there's a real push and pull in terms of who he is. But in terms of the 12 character hand types, which you can have a look on my website, on my blog, um, he's both an analytical hand and a practical hand. So he is, notice the knots here, all of the knots on all the fingers here, with the exception of the left hand Mercury finger. He's highly analytical. The information he receives, he's constantly slowly breaking down and processing a lot of thought. He's very philosophical. He's intellectual. He is a deep thinker. He's analytical. He's constantly breaking things down in his mind. And he's got a critical eye for detail. He's a bit of a nitpicker, in fact. And this is partly why he beats himself up. This reduced sense of himself means that he is his own worst critic. He's a perfectionist. That's what we're seeing here. He's a perfectionist. And this is again, this is partly these kind of Michael Jackson-esque vibes I'm getting, because we've got all the same things, all of the same ingredients here. And so likely we also have the possibility, the great possibility for an identity crisis. And I believe that may well happen at somewhere around the age of 40 years old. I think he's going to retract, come into himself. Notice the lifeline. It swings outwards boldly. He's making ground. He's covering uh, vast expanses. Under his feet. He's not afraid. He's courageously taking steps out into the unknown. He's widening and expanding his the Venus Mount area. But it's not, when you look at it, it's not an overly developed one. There isn't an over kind of, he's not as warm as 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 perhaps he could or should be. There isn't actually as much of um he's not enjoying life as much as he could or should be. He's just constantly working. And in a way, actually, it's good that the amount of Venus is not overdeveloped, because if it were, he'd probably have an unhealthy relationship with sex. He doesn't. He has actually quite a healthy one, I think. But he is a little bit selfish. It has to be said. He's a little bit selfish. And also, the Simian line on the right hand here will create some jealousy, some possessiveness. But because we see it on the right hand and not the left, there's less of a chance of that. He's more um, passionate, because that's what this really is. It's almost a kind of intense passion around his career, around um, how uh, how how he makes his every career move. He's so laser focused on his career at this time. He doesn't actually have all that much time for others in his life. And whilst he's an exceptional lover, he might not well be the most considerate. And if you look at the left-hand lifeline here, it wraps really tightly around Venus, reducing Venus to something of uh, a very isolated lifestyle. He actually has thoughts and feelings around his future, in that he already probably thinks and feels that he's going to retract himself. He's already got ideas about this. He's going to retreat and shut himself away, and say, no, I no longer want to be famous anymore. I'm going to concentrate on a completely different aspect of myself, and really work out who I am. And this is why I think he's potentially got something of an identity crisis on the cards at the age of around about 40. And this probably begins at 35, at 36, 35. So you might well see news about Jeon Jungkook retiring from the music industry at around about 35, 36. I don't think that he's all that happy. I see, obviously he's very sensitive. He's very self-aware. He's got a great amount of awareness about himself. As I say, he's well developed psychologically. You notice all the fingers are relatively straight. They do all lean towards Apollo. He understands that in order to get somewhere in life, he needs to utilize and play to his strengths, and he recognizes what those strengths are, and those are all things creative and his talents, his inspirational and influential skills, and great self-awareness, great awareness, full stop. Highly intelligent people have a greater propensity towards poor mental health. And I see a headline here that does dip a little bit too low into Luna on both the left and the right hand. This shows dark thoughts, dark thinking. He's highly imaginative. He's highly creative. That kind of goes without saying because of the curve, the arc. But again, that comes with this kind of highly creative and imaginative thinking is again the propensity towards depression. I think again, at the age of 40 in particular, he's going to perhaps become very depressed. There's going to be a complete sort of almost like a breakdown of who he is and his own idea of himself, and he's going to kind of re-emerge. And life begins at 40 for a lot of people. He's going to go through actually a necessary struggle in order to be reborn in some sort of sense. And when I first looked at these hands, I thought, where's the fate line? Where is the career line here? I can't see it. And then I took a closer look. Super hard to see, but it comes from Neptune, and it's very faint, obviously. And this is partly the reason for this is because, look, you can just about see it here. It's because the reason why it's faint, he has this feeling, in particular right now in his life, that he's not really doing what he should be doing, despite his incredible success and popularity. He doesn't feel as though this is his calling, that this is his path. He feels there's something else out there. And this is one of the ingredients towards this, um, identity crisis. I'm calling it that. It's not necessarily that. It's a midlife crisis. These are the ingredients towards it. He's going to almost sort of break down and then re-emerge and regrow and rise from the ashes like the phoenix that he is. And one of the reasons why he has this kind of, it's like a subconscious feeling there. He's not quite recognized yet, but it's still there, and it's playing on him in some way, in deep in the recesses of his abstract thoughts whilst he sleeps. This is lurking, and the reason why it's there is because it actually comes from his past life or past lives. A lot of his skills and attributes, and probably personality traits, are directly as a result of his past life. Even his headline reaches into this very active, low-hanging, and overdeveloped Pluto Mount. This is a place of ancestral memory. It's a place of deep, uh, powerful, profound, and wholly uncharted territory in terms of memory that all of us have, and very few of us have access to. And so, on some level here, it's not quite so much on the right hand, but instinctively, inherently, this is something that is within him. You can see it on his left hand here. He's coming to this conclusion slowly that um, he actually is someone else. That he should be someone else. He should be doing something else. A lot of the skills and you know traits that he has in this life are as a result of his past life, and he's recognizing other aspects about himself that are coming through. That's what's happening, and so this is again another ingredient towards that midlife crisis. And I actually think that a lot of midlife crises happen to people because of this. We are tapping into ourselves every time we sleep, and we're unlocking at different times through different events. We trigger certain memories. They come through over time, and in some way, at some time in our lives, we kind of come to something of a realization, whether it's conscious or not, and we become a completely different person. We are constantly in flux. So I might be wrong about the 35, 36 prediction where he retires from the music industry, but at 40, I certainly think he will. There's no doubt about at 40, he will at least have a massive change to his life, complete change up. He will, in a sense, become a completely different person. He'll hide himself away, shut himself away, and have something of a rebirth. So that is my palm reading for, how do I say his name? Jeon Jungkook. Forgive me. I all I know about this person is his name, although I can't pronounce it, and that he's 27 years old. That is literally it, and that he is one of the most famous members of one of the most famous bands out there. And that's actually the only reason why I wanted to do this video, because it's something a bit different. I've done another video on another member of this band some time ago, so do check out his hands as well. Please do let me know your thoughts on this palm reading. I've got Pixie upstairs calling me. She's got a lot to say for herself. Oh, we've got Connie joining us. No? No, you're not going to join us? No. She'll make an appearance, won't you? Not for long, though. You're free to go. You're free. You're free. Please don't trash things. Thank you all very much for watching, and let me know what your thoughts are on this palm reading, who you'd like me to read the hands of next Sunday. And also, please do join me on Tuesday when I'll be doing my fully interactive tarot reading. Thank you all so much. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.